on the audience, okay? Ooh.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Max Young, and I'd like to welcome you all on behalf of Vroman's Bookstore to our virtual event. Today, we are lucky to have with us LeUyen Pham, who will be talking about her new book, Outside Inside. Wynn worked in animation before turning to children's books. She wrote and illustrated Big Sister, Little Sister, and The Bear Who Wasn't There, and is the illustrator of numerous other big books. She currently lives in LA with her husband. Today, we will have an audience Q&A portion, so if you would like to ask Wynn a question at any point, you can go ahead and click the Ask a Question button towards the bottom, and we will go ahead and get to that at some point in the event. And lastly, if you would like to purchase her book, you can go ahead and click the green button down towards the bottom, and you can purchase it from our website. But with that all out of the way, I will go ahead and let her take over for the time being. Thank you all so much.
Hi, everybody. Oh my gosh, I was trying to explain how hard it is to do crowdcast because I'm looking at all these people showing up and I'm missing everybody so much, and it's so nice to see names that I haven't seen in a while. Hi, Terrell, how are you? And my nieces are in the audience. Hi, guys. I'm gonna point you out today, so be ready for that. And it's just so nice to sort of see everybody. The funny thing about these crowdcastings is like it feels like there's a party going on the sidebar on the side because you guys all get to talk to each other, and I'm trying to figure out what it is I'm trying to say and keep an eye on all this other stuff too. So if I missed you, I love you all so much. I'm so glad you guys showed up. You know, I keep saying this. I don't have fans, but I have a lot of friends, and I'm really grateful for that. Anyway, you can see me, but I wish I could see you. I'm here to talk about my new book, Outside Inside. This is it. And it's a book that, okay, so you guys all know me. I've done, you know, over 100 children's books over the last 20 years. I do a lot of books all the time. And I don't write a whole lot of them. I think I've written about 6 to date, maybe 7, I can't remember. And this one, I'm also horrible at selling myself. I'm really not good at going on Facebook and telling people to buy things, but this one's a really special book to me. It sort of came out of the blue and came quickly, and I feel like it's definitely not a book that I wrote myself. I think it's a book that we were all writing together. As a consequence, I feel very weird putting my name on it, and I feel very weird trying to, you know, to go out and promote the book, but I feel like the message is a good message, and it's a message that I think needs to be had right now. So anyway, the book is called Outside Inside. I'm going to share my screen because I'm supposed to be, I've got a PowerPoint that sort of explains all of this, of how I came up with this book and how it all works. So while the PowerPoint is on, I can't see you guys, so forgive me if I'm not answering questions right away. So my book is called Outside Inside, and the book came about largely as a result of, I want to say about a month and a half after lockdown happened. I think I was the same as everyone else in the world. I was kind of blown away by everything that was going on, how much changed. Everybody was blown away. And I was spending a lot of time with our family, my 2 sons and my husband, walking around our neighborhood in Los Angeles. And I think the thing that struck me the most when we started these walks was like how quickly everything had changed outside. Like, I don't know if this happened where you guys were, but suddenly there were no cars outside. The streets were empty, shops were closed down. People were keeping distances from each other. This was even before we were wearing masks. And then eventually people started wearing masks, and everything just felt like it was on mute, you know, like we were seeing everything from a distance. And then slowly these signs started popping up, like signs on the sidewalk and signs in windows, encouraging people that, hey, we're all in this together. We saw this amazing picture of our neighbors painting a mural on the wall. My son's birthday was in June, and you know, we couldn't have a birthday party for him, so we threw a drive-by birthday party, just like many of you guys I'm sure had to do in the past year. And I think these are all the things that were going on the outside, but on the inside, I was obsessively watching the news and listening to what was happening in the hospitals and seeing the numbers and the numbers of people going into emergency care. And I just couldn't believe the extent to which we were sort of putting our emergency workers to task, how much they had to deal with very, very quickly. I don't know if you guys saw any of these news shows about how there were just, it was sort of a last minute emergency cases. They would have to throw plastic wrap up and tape it down with duct tape. And they were taping themselves down with duct tape just to prevent the virus, just to isolate an area of the hospital as a COVID ward. And there was one report that I saw that was overwhelming to me. Oops, sorry. And it was the story of a nurse. She had snapped a picture, and I can't go backwards for some reason, but she had snapped a picture of a man holding up a sign in the hospital door saying, you know, thank you for saving my wife's life. And I just remember seeing the sign and crying and not knowing how to absorb all this information. And so I started to write stuff down, and I started making sketches. And it happened very, very quickly, I think. And within a matter of a couple of days, I had sort of the book laid out, this book that I'm going to read to you now. So without any further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and start reading the book to you. It's called Outside, Inside. Something strange happened on an unremarkable day just before the season changed. Everybody who was outside went inside. Oh dear. Everyone, everywhere, all over the world. Everyone just went inside, shut their doors, and waited. Well, almost everyone. Some people needed to be where they needed to be. Outside, the sky was quiet, but the wind still blew, and birds kept singing. Raccoons came out, and squirrels played in the streets, but the cars stayed away. The world felt a little different. Inside, we baked and cooked, made music and watched TV. We read and played games. Some of us worked a little, some of us worked a lot, and some of us couldn't work at all. We all felt a little different. Outside, there were fences, both real and pretend. Swings sat still, and slides were lonely. Bells didn't ring, and halls were empty. We had birthdays without parties, shared words without sounds, and reached each other without touching. The world was changing a tiny bit outside. Inside, we waited, and we worried, we laughed, and we cried, and we tried to breathe. We made things together and did things alone. We hoped and prayed and wished. We were all changing a tiny bit inside. Outside, the world kept growing. Inside, we kept growing too. So why did we all go inside? Well, there were lots of reasons, but mostly because everyone knew it was the right thing to do. On the outside, we are all different, but on the inside, we're all the same. And we remembered that soon spring would come, inside and outside. And that's my book. Again, I can't see the screen, so I can't see if anyone's commenting, so I'm just going to keep barreling along. I'm going to show you guys actually something that not a whole lot of people have seen. It's the original sketches that I made for the book. So you have to remember that when I was trying to put this together, I was a bit of a mess. I think I was crying a lot. I was confused. I was scared about the world. I was trying to keep my kids happy. I was juggling work deadlines and, making sure all the devices worked at home. I was freaking out about friends who were out of work and suddenly how much the world had changed. And so the whole time was sort of a blur. But when I started making these sketches for the book, I didn't quite know what I was doing. It was all sort of a mess. But the first two images from the book actually came from a virtual exhibit from the online exhibit. The Eric Carle Museum had an online sheltering in place exhibit where they had a bunch of children's book illustrators come up with some images of what they'd been doing during lockdown. And Mo Willems put it together. Ellen Kiter was in charge of it. And they asked me to participate. And I had these two images. These were the images that I had in my head for the show. And those were the beginning. Those two were the beginning of the book. And once I had those two images and I had the idea of the outside and inside, I started going forward. And these are chicken scratches, I know. So, but you can see how much they end up varying from the final story, from what it actually looked like. The thing that I really wanted to make sure in the book was just to show that it wasn't something that was just happening in the United States, but that it was happening all around the world at the same time. And so to that end, I made certain that as much of the world is being represented as possible, that it's not a Western story, that it's a story of the world. And so in these initial sketches, for instance, of the windows, I wanted to make sure that all these countries that I have listed on here all had cases and were all under lockdown. And all the faces in the book are actually based on real people, real faces, real photographs that I found. This hospital scene was probably one of the hardest scenes for me to do. The hospital I actually chose to feature was the Brooklyn Hospital. And it was having of course, it was one of the hospitals that was originally had the largest onslaught of patients coming in. I think it was also where I saw that underground footage that was taken where doctors were expressing how hard it was to be going through this and how much they were having to work on the fly. And this was the initial sketch that I had for the hospital scene, and I didn't know what the sketches were going to be. I didn't know what the photographs were going to be. But I had gone through and just taken, you know what, I can't even talk about the hospital scene. It makes me cry, but it's a tough scene to see. And if you look very carefully at all the images, they're all based on real people. They're all based on real events. There's stories of a woman who was celebrating, I believe it was her 83rd birthday. She went in knowing that she wasn't going to come back out, knowing that she wasn't going to see her friends. And the nurses ended up making a birthday cake for her. And I think the next day she died. And it was just very hard to find these stories and to collect them. But I felt like it was necessary to put into the book so that if you've got this book and you're reading with kids, you can explain why everyone has to wear masks, why we have to do this, because ultimately at the end, this is what we're trying to say. Anyway, so these are my initial sketches. They're all quite messy. There was one point when I was not sure what I was doing with the book and or whether it was even going to be a book. And I think I posted on Facebook, and some of you guys might know this because I'm pretty sure I asked all of you if you could think of a single word to describe how you feel right now. And I got back, I don't know, something like 200 words. And that helped figure out what people were doing inside. And I started taking some of those words and pulling some images even from my friends on Facebook and putting them into the book. There was one spread that didn't make it in, and I think it was because it was maybe too whimsical. It's this spread. And originally the idea was that there was a period where it felt like nobody was outside. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but do you remember hearing all the stories about animals were going wild at the time, and monkeys were going loose on the streets, and goats were wandering through British villages, and I think two pandas finally were able to mate without so many people watching them. And I thought I tried to include that in the book because I thought it was a sweet concept that the world was continuing outside without us. We ultimately ended up taking it out because it moved the center of the book from people to animals. And I think we needed to keep it sort of people-centric. Anyway, these early sketches are quite a mess. The book took about 6 weeks to complete. I think of that. I came up with the idea. I presented it to my editor, Connie Shu at Roaring Brook. She's amazing, and she went with it right away. And she said, "Let's see how quickly you can do this." And I think I needed to do it as quickly as that because I couldn't stay in this space for very long. I couldn't stay looking at some of these images. It was just it was a hard place to stay at. But it's funny because I've been doing books for 20 years, and I like to focus on books that present the world in a beautiful way. I like to present the best of us, and I like to encourage ideas for kids to behave better in the world. Like let's make the world we want it to be. And I think this was the first time I ever just recorded the world exactly as it was. It's a document of our time. It's a time capsule of exactly what we were going through. Even this image, I'm not sure people will catch it, but it's 8 o'clock if you see on the clock. And do you remember that period of time when people would go outside at either 7 or 8 in the evening and cheer for emergency workers? That's in the book. Like everything that I could remember, everything that we were doing, all the kindness that people were showing to each other. I was collecting them and I was putting it down as much as I could. And people have asked also about how the ending, it ends on this sort of hopeful note. I'll be honest with you, when I did the book, I had not anticipated that we would still be in lockdown all this time later. So it's sort of become a metaphorical spring that we're talking about, that it hasn't quite happened yet, but it's hope. The book sort of ends on hope, and eventually we'll go out again. I know it seems crazy, like I've got PTSD, I think, at this point, or no, we're still in it, so it's not even PTSD yet, it's just whatever. Anyway, I'm gonna show you one last little quick 30-second video of a painting. These paintings took about 20 hours to do, which I discovered because my little Procreate has a timer. So it shows how all the references that I was using to make sure that as much of the world was being represented as I could. These paintings are crazy, and when I look back at this time, I don't think I slept very much, and I can't remember doing half the things that I did. I sometimes look back and think, why did I do that? I can't believe I did that. Anyway, there's a very quick run through of one of my paintings, and that's it. That's my book. I am going to shut this down and stop sharing my screen and come back. And I think that's it for my presentation, and I'm hoping you guys will have some questions or something for me. Oh, I need to point out, while my nieces are in the audience, do you see the back cover right here, this little drawing here? And especially this one, it's a beautiful little drawing on the inside here. I can't take credit for those. Those were made by my niece Lizzie. She's in the audience now. She's the future children's book illustrator. So I'm telling her now, you were printed in my book first. So when you become rich and famous, you can say that I was the one who introduced you to the world. So there you go.
Awesome. That was awesome. Thank you so much. So we do have a good number of audience questions. So I'll go ahead and just start reading those out to you, and you can answer them how you like.
Sure.
So this first one is from Nathan, and his question is, what's the story behind the cat? Are they on every page?
Yeah, so it's a funny, I think sometimes something that people overlook is this is meant to be a children's book, and I think the way I'm describing it, I'm giving you too much into my head, but it's meant to be a book that you're supposed to sit down with a kid, and it's written in a safe enough way that a child can go through it without being too affected, but the adult can go through and take moments to describe what's going on in each of the images. But for me, the cat was an essential entryway into telling this story. Like kids needed something safe to sort of follow in each of the images. And so I knew I needed an animal of some sort. It couldn't be a human because a human wasn't able to go inside and out. And of all the animals, I kept thinking, well, which animal is allowed to go inside and outside? And the cat is the one animal that can come into the house and out of the house. You know, you got to walk a dog. Birds aren't allowed into houses, but a cat could go anywhere it wants. And so I had to put that cat on each of the images. I actually have a pet cat named Sardine, and originally I was going to use her, but she's this very sleek little gray tabby. And if I'd put her on in the images, she would have disappeared because half of the images were painted in gray, and I needed sort of a silhouette, like a black slip of a shadow, to move in and out of the book. So anyway, that's the story behind the cat. She has no name, but she's just a little sleek shadow. Sardine, yes, Truman, it's Sardine.
So the next question is also from Nathan, and they ask, how long did the editorial process take, and what was it like?
Okay, normally in a book, it takes about a year to make a book. It takes quite a bit of time, and there's a back and forth between the writing and all. This book was like a stream of conscious book, you know. It was those rough sketches. I think I had sort of flitting ideas in my head of what I wanted to do, but it wasn't a book. I don't think in my head it was just images, and I just sort of had to get it out onto paper. And when I think it took about 3 or 4 days for me to get all these images down, and they were these rough ideas. And then when I sent them to my editor, she did very little editorial work to it. I think what happened was that we had conversations about how it was affecting her, how it was affecting people in New York, because everyone she was working with was in New York, and they gave me feedback about what they were going through, and I just took their experiences and I moved it into the book as much as I could. So it wasn't a common editorial experience. It was just more like, hey, did we get it all in there? Are we representing as much as we possibly can? I don't recall any moment where anyone went through and corrected my grammar or anything, or said you got to change this drawing or add this. It was all just about, oh, that moment feels right, that moment feels good. It was not a normal experience. It was a very, very unique kind of, like I said, it's a collection. It's a time capsule, a collection of that moment in time. And so I can't really say that it was editing in the normal way. But I do want to say that from start to finish, it took about 6 weeks. And there was very little pushback on changing anything. I think it wasn't that we were necessarily in a hurry. I mean, they wanted to get the book out in a certain time. They wanted to get it out when it was still needed. But I think, like I said, I can't look back at it and think clearly how structured everything was. Everything was unstructured. It just came out this way. And because I've been making books for so long, my brain naturally translates information into a book. And I think I just relied on muscle memory to get me through making most of this book. It's not a very satisfactory answer, sorry.
Oh, that's really good. That's like one of the fastest times I've ever heard a children's book being made, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
That's really impressive.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. So the next question is from Susan, and they ask, do you feel any different about reading the book now as to when you created it?
Yeah. I get very emotional just kind of looking through it. And for me, it's emotional because I remember the time that I was going through making it and collecting stories and hearing all this. And I'm like everybody else, right? Like, time has passed. People are sick of the lockdown. People are getting less strict about being safe, or wanting to go out more, wanting to sort of break out of quarantine a bit. And I think it's nice that the book is coming out at this time, even for me, because when I looked at the pages, I remember that's what we're doing these things for. And I remember my state of mind and that sense that we needed to sort of protect each other. So it reads differently to me now. I can almost read it like an outsider, like I didn't write the book myself. Like, it's a reminder. And it's very similar to when you write a journal when you're a kid, and you don't look at it for years, and then you look at it again, and you remember both things at the same time. You remember exactly what it felt like when you wrote it, and you know exactly what it feels like now to see that old self of you reading it. It's kind of what I feel like. Like I look at the book and I'm proud of parts of it. I can't look at other parts of it. I can't believe I did parts of it. Like I can't even remember that I did it. Was what I mean. Like it was just such a fuzzy time. But it's yeah, it's weird. I feel like it's something that sort of stands on its own because I didn't write it. I really don't think I wrote it. I just recorded it, and so I can watch it in the same way, I guess, that most other people are looking at the book. That sounds so facetious, doesn't it? I don't mean it to sound that
Oh,
way at all. I just
it doesn't. That was a really well structured answer. Let's see. Izzy is asking how does she get an autographed copy of your book? And we actually have signed book plates at our store. So if you'd like to purchase it from our store, you can go ahead and have an autographed book.
yeah, absolutely. And you guys, if any of you guys know me, just contact me and I'll make a special drawing for you, of course, next time. Don't worry. You'll get anything autographed you want. Don't worry.
The next question is from Joni. And they ask, on the spread with the monochromatic people with colored ones, it looks like there were some portraits of actual people who died. Are there some people we'd know here?
Yeah. I'm not going to list off any names because I don't want to, but almost everyone in the book is actually based on somebody. And some of them are, private. Some of them are very public. There's some rather famous people on that spread, and then there are other people who you might never have heard of. I think I was struck by the nature of this disease, like how it was affecting some people, and I was surprised at how many young people. I think there was a story in the New York Times that was following two nurses in Wuhan. They were both the same age. They both had a daughter. They were both in the prime of their lives. I think they were 28, and they both got sick at the same time. And one of them died, and one of them didn't. And they couldn't figure out why. And they made it into the story just because I couldn't understand the tragedy behind it. I have some friends whose family have died, and they've put their images in the book, and I'm not going to say who they are, but yeah, they're all real people. If you find yourself in the book, shoot me an email or a text or something, and let me know, and I'll affirm whether or not it's you. But it's all real. It's like I said, it's a story that truly happened. That image was a tough image though to do. I mean, a lot of the images were tough, and it's not something that if you're sitting reading with your kid, you necessarily have to point this out to them. But it's just something good to know. Sorry.
Yeah. It's a tough time.
I know. You know what?
Write this incredible book, like.
Yeah, I don't want this to read as like a sad, depressing book. It is not. It is truly a book that talks about the best in us. Like it was a collection of the things that we did that were amazing. Like I think that was the thing that I could not get over, was that this was like the worst of times, and people were doing such incredibly kind things for each other. Like that's the part I couldn't get over, like I remember going through our neighborhood and seeing a woman, she had written her grocery list on her garage wall because she couldn't get her groceries, and the neighbors were going and going grocery shopping for her and leaving the packages at her front door. And it's like the best of times and the worst of times. It's really amazing how great we are as humans when it comes down to it. So it's a hopeful book. It's a very hopeful book.
Yeah. The next question is from Kate. And Kate is asking, how did the book impact your family as you were going through the process?
Oh, my poor family. I have two beautiful boys. I think that's Kate Moo King who's asking. Sorry, I wasn't going to say any names, but Kate, you're in the book too. You should find it. I have two beautiful boys, and I have a great husband who's also an artist. And they were the ones sort of helping me collect things as we were taking walks through neighborhoods. They were the ones who were pointing out, hey, look, that's teddy bears. They have teddy bears in the windows. I think those are teddy bear hunts. And they were the ones sort of like noticing things as we were going through the streets. And I like I said, the whole time is kind of a blur. I was working on an iPad. This is one of the few books that I've ever done purely digitally, and it was just because I couldn't get the space to paint this traditionally. So when you have an iPad, you can take it everywhere you go. So we would be sitting watching a movie, and I would be sitting painting on in the book, next to my kids. And so it's a very physical book for me because I feel their presence around me when I was doing this book. And they're in the book. They're like scattered throughout the book in all these different images, and they're even in it with different lengths of hair because during different times of the lockdown, their hair was growing. So my family, I mean, my kids are like in every single book that I do, and actually, if you look, the father in the book looks curiously like my husband too. I always manage to get my family into the books in some way. So yeah, I don't tell him that I said that. I don't even tell him. I think he knows it's him, but I don't want to say it out loud.
Yeah, we'll keep it a secret. We won't tell him.
Yeah, let's not tell anybody. Okay.
So the next question is from Diane, and they're asking, is Dan Santat and his son on the page with the father and son in the ukulele?
So he is the most recognizable figure. I swear to God, I've got so many people contacting me. Is that Dan? Like, yes, of course. There's for those of you guys who don't know, Dan Santat won the Caldecott Medal a few years ago for the imaginary friend Beaker. I forgot the title of it. I'm horrible with names. Anyway, he's a fabulous artist, and he's a good friend of mine. And he is probably like the only other person in the world who could paint a book as quick as I can. So yay, Dan. But he took time during the lockdown to make a ukulele. The guy wants to conquer the world, and I texted him and asked if I could toss him into the book, and he said yeah. And I don't think he knew what I was doing. But I had to put it in there because I thought he was one of the few people who was doing something really constructive with this time. So it's him and his youngest son making a ukulele in there. Yes, it's him.
So it doesn't look like we have any other audience questions. Is there anything else you would like to tell the audience, or anything?
Guys, I miss everybody so much. I really do. And this is the second one that I've done, and I keep thinking that I'm going to get better at not getting emotional at these things and being able to tell this wonderful story. And I can't stop myself. I see everybody's names scrolling up the side, and I just miss people so much. I miss being able to hang out and have coffee, and I'm so grateful that you guys all showed up today. I know it's like a Saturday morning. There's so much better things to do, but I hope you guys like the book. I hope you guys managed to spend some time with someone special and read the book. I actually really like to say, you know what? There are some amazing books coming out having to do with with quarantine, having to do with this sort of insane time, having to do with just sort of healing the nation a little bit. Sophie Blackwell's got a book out. Again, I suck with names, but she's got an amazing new book out. I think it's like from an alien perspective of the world, and it talks about how great we are as humans. And Brian Floca's got a book coming out as well that talks about the emergency workers and what they had to go through. Dan Santat's got a great book called, this is the one I can remember, A New Day. He's amazing. All of these books, I feel like everyone out there in the children's book world, it's like we're all coming together and we're trying to find books to heal ourselves and like to teach us to be better humans. And I love that. I love all these books that are coming out. And this is for, like, I'm looking at it as a golden time to take your kids and to see the number of great books that are out there and people who are trying to just make the world a better place, like so much more. Thank you, Phil. It's called If You Come to Earth. That's Sophie's book. Sorry, there's just so many. I can't list them all off, but please, like, number one, go off and support your local bookstores. They seriously need it because of all this that's going on. But two, look for those books that are trying to make this world, a better place. And I'm hoping my book is just one of many, many, many that are coming out this year that are going to do that. So thank you. I just want to say thank you. And seriously, if you guys want an autograph, just contact me. I'm here. You guys will always know how to find me. And thanks so much. Thanks for sharing the time with me. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That was really incredible. I'm pretty sure everyone else enjoyed it as much as I did. That was that was great. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. If you would like to purchase their book, again, that green button down towards the bottom, you can click it. But with that all out of the way, thank you all so much, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you, Wayne.
Thanks, guys. Bye.